All right, so hi, I'm Jamie Oswald, and welcome to another edition of the Diversified Semantic Layers special series on unstructured geek analytics, where we get to know somebody from the community a little bit better and just learn, who they are, where they've been, and what makes them tick. So today I'm joined by Noel Hollis. Noel?
Hi, everybody.
Um, And so Noelle is, I believe, pretty new to the community of business objects. We'll find out a little bit more about that in a minute. But she was at the SAP Business Objects user group this year, which was my first opportunity to meet her in person, and I think her first opportunity to meet a lot of people in the broader community as well. So, Noelle, where do you live? Where do you come from?
Well, where I come from, that's probably some kind of planet in outer space, but I actually live in Atlanta, Georgia right now.
Okay. So you live in Atlanta now. Have you always lived in Atlanta, or is there more history out there? If we were, going to do a background check, look for arrests and,
Most
newspaper
of,
clippings and that sort of thing.
most of my arrests would be in Atlanta. There would probably be some down in Statesboro, Georgia. I lived there for 4 years.
Okay.
It's horrible. Don't Georgia Southern kids don't listen to me. No, I'm just a big city girl, and it's a small town, so it was a little confining. But that's where I went to school, and that's where I actually started SAP.
Okay. So you live in Atlanta. Where do you work?
I currently work with Noel Rubbermaid, so it's one of those random companies that happen to be in Atlanta. We have a lot of them.
Yeah. So you started learning SAP in college. Was it just a class on SAP? Was it BI specific? Is it a University Alliance school?
We actually do. We are one of the first SAP University Alliances in the Southeast. We're definitely the biggest one. We have the TERP 10 training that you can get from Georgia Southern. We also have a SAP certificate. I thought I had it around here. I was going to put it up on the screen. But we have our SAP certificate where you have to take at least 3 courses in SAP, and all of those courses are hands-on. I actually got into the BI space through our BW course at school.
BW, huh? We'll try not to hold that against you.
Thank you.
So a couple of standard questions we have. What kind of mobile device are you rocking today?
I am currently rocking an iPhone 4S because I got so angry at my Galaxy S3 I switched backwards.
Yeah. I had a very brief Android affair, we'll call it, and immediately went back to my first love, the iPhone.
Yep.
So are you Windows or Mac?
I am currently doing this on a MacBook Air. I'm an Apple geek.
Okay. Cool. So you started with BW in college. How long have you been a business objects type person? And I think you're more specifically a Crystal person?
I started actually on Webby. I started with my internship back in 2010 at Coca-Cola Enterprises. They kind of plucked me up out of college and threw me on web intelligence.
All right. Excellent. And so then, so do you consider yourself more a developer, an admin, an architect, trainer, server nerd, tool user? Where do you fall on the spectrum?
Right now, I'm still kind of trying to find that path, to be honest. I am a functional analyst at Noel Rubbermaid, and that gives me the chance to do everything from I'm planning the projects, I'm working with the tools, I'm developing on the tools, and I'm actually learning some BI admin right now. So,
so what is your favorite tool in the BI stack currently? Well, we'll open it up to anything, and then I want you to answer specifically within the business object stack too.
Actually, well, this is. If you had asked me this about 3 months ago, I would have said Lumira. But then they patched Lumira and made me cry a little bit because they broke it.
What did they break?
Well, it was just buggy the first for .12, and there were, and to quote someone from SAP, I won't name names, but there are hidden features.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't, this is not good, guys. But Lumira probably still is one of my favorites because it's really agile and you can do a lot with it, even with the bugs that are still there.
Okay. So speaking of Lumira, where do you think BI is going? Where do you think the future is?
My future, and this is probably me just being hopeful, is I'm looking more for BI to be closer to a web page, something that someone really wants to go to because it's not only informational and gives you information, but it's pretty too.
Okay. Interesting. Um, so like infographic type stuff, or more like a Facebook with just feeds of stuff that you're interested in?
A little bit of both. Feeds of basically infographics where, okay, I've got all my sales data coming through, and as it updates, it pops up into my feeds. Or, you know, when one of my big customers makes a big purchase, maybe if I'm a sales manager, it pops up in my feed and I get that updated graph. So much more social media-esque, very interactive, almost in your face, kind of like Facebook. But of course, you'll be able to turn this off a little bit more easily than Facebook.
Right, right. Um, so that's a pretty neat idea. We should flesh that out sometime. But the next question I want to ask you is more about the community. So you joined Twitter or started your blog or whatever earlier this year, right? So give me your Twitter handle, your URL.
My Twitter handle is @DatabaseFairy. So when you guys see the Database Fairy popping up on your tweet feed, it's a new word. Your Twitter feed, that's gonna be me. My URL is gonna be CAFFandCorp, CAFFANDCORP. That's on Blogger. It's probably easier to Google, but it's called Caffeine in Corporate America because, like most IT geeks, I'm pretty addicted to caffeine.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So when did you start blogging and get on Twitter? Was that back in college, or since you've joined the workforce, or have you been out of college for a while?
I've been out of college about, I think, 3 years, 4 years.
I was a little scared you were going to count it in months, which was really
No,
throwing me off.
not quite. 3 or 4 years, I can't remember. Work's such a blur.
Fair enough.
But I actually opened my Twitter account in college, and the Database Fairy handle came from one of my friends. I bought a book, and it's the manga guide to databases, and the whole thing is there's a database fairy that goes through and teaches the princess of the kingdom how to use relational databases and reporting. And
That's frighteningly awesome.
it's hilarious. I bought it as a supplement book to one of my database classes, and one of my friends just was like, "Oh, so you're the database fairy, huh?" I was like, "Well, okay."
I think it suits you. I think that's all right.
It works. It's definitely memorable. But so we went through that, and I started my blog almost a couple months out of college. It's really not so much BI space oriented. It's for younger kids and how to get jobs, because somehow I managed to waltz out of college with a job, and most kids my age are still looking. And there's just a lot of tips and tricks that I feel I can share with kids my age. And also, there aren't resources out there that I've found.
Interesting. So you should become a cub reporter on Johnny RP's payroll. He does a lot with career building, specifically in the SAP space. So that's interesting. All right. So when you're looking for help with something, a technical issue, career advice, etc., where do you go? Where do you research things or look for that, one nugget of information that you need?
Well, as everyone, for my initial layout, I usually go to Google and just see what pops up. But I usually actually end up going to my network, especially for technical problems. It's a lot easier to go through Twitter and finding somebody like for admin problems. The great guys at EV Tech really know what they're doing and are like Greg and Eric are great. And if I had an admin problem, I would probably ping one of them and see if they knew it off the top of their head first. Then I'd probably go into SCN and ask a question, and it's kind of the deeper dive. If nobody knows it off the top of their head, then you end up going into the deeper dive, and then you end up going into the OS. Well, nope, they're incidents now. They're not messages anymore. The message is on.
I have no idea. They don't even let me have an SID, so that's all right.
You're lucky.
If it is SID, I think that's what they're called.
It is.
So, speaking of support, what is the biggest thing that you've screwed up at work that you are allowed to talk about because the statute of limitations has run out? Now, I know you haven't been working for that long, so I don't know what the statute of limitations might be, but obviously I don't want to get you in trouble with anybody.
Trying to think of. Oh, this is more than a year ago. We were doing a POC back at my previous employer before Newell, and someone let me have CMC access for some reason, and I accidentally deleted an entire security structure. So no one had any access to any of the folders, including the administrators, because they gave me administrative access.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned.
For myself and our BI admin.
Right. So SBOUC, the SAP Business Objects User Conference that was in Anaheim last month, was that your first Business Objects conference? Was it your first conference overall?
It was actually my second conference and second Business Objects conference that kind of took me away from Atlanta, because I kind of consider our chapter meetings here for ASUG conferences. We have 300 to 400 people every time, and it's wild, to say the least, at times. It's like a mini SBOUC. It's great. But I went to the one in Orlando the year before, okay. And that was kind of my introduction to SAP conferences.
Good. So what did you think? What are your best parts? Where is there opportunity?
Best parts, as always, networking is always great. They've always got great content there. You can learn almost anything. My only complaint this year as a functional person, I either want really technical stuff so that I can learn where my technical people are coming from, or I want more how to utilize SAP in a functional area. And I found that this year there was a lot of like almost in between. It was almost like beginner technical, because I actually came from a development background. So I know both sides, and it was just kind of hovering in the middle for me this year.
All right. Well, that's reasonable. I think that sounds like an opportunity for you to volunteer for ASUG and help set some content for the event and other events going forward. So we had to squeeze this interview in, and I do appreciate you finding time for me before you go off to the fabulous UK. What are you doing there, and what do you do for fun when you aren't jetting off to the UK?
When I'm not jet setting. One of my girlfriends actually lives in the UK now. She went over to City University to get a degree in library sciences, which is really funny because she keeps pinging me for help with SQL for library sciences and HTML and all kinds of stuff. So I was like, can I just go take y'all's tests and like get a master's in library sciences while I'm over there? But normally, what I do for fun outside of work, I eat a lot. I really like going to restaurants. I do design work on the side because I worked through college at my own business doing design work, so I do a lot of print design and things like that. I do weird reporting things, like report off of my Fitbit and various other, yeah, I'm a nerd at the end of the day.
Hey, that's all right. God bless you. We need more of you. All right. Well, is there anything else you want our listeners and viewers to know about Noel before we let you go?
There's nothing I can think of. Oh, well, I was going to put my cat in the window, but he's actually run off for once. That's new.
Well, that's all right. He, I think, would be the first cat on the lair. So we've had some dogs before, but we'll have him back. All right. So one last question. We always end on a semi-irreverent one. Considering your locale, which Southern cuisine is more genuine? Chicken and waffles or shrimp and grits?
That's tough. Probably chicken and waffles, because you don't have a lot of coastline on the south. And
Fair
lake
enough.
just don't taste good.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you, Noel, so much for showing up here, and we look forward to talking with you again and seeing you at the next event.
It was good talking with you guys. Looking forward to seeing you again, too.
All right.
Bye.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on the net at savethecms.com.